Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's special selection comes at us from Steven. Singer Zovia, who in your other exposure to them sang mostly clean, here sings more harsh. But beyond these two styles, she has three others: guttural bellows, strained cleans, and ethereal choir-like siren calls. There's also a call and response in the bridge where the guitarist joins in with his own growls to add to hers. This song is a good representation of their trance doom style. So we're looking at Obscure Sphinx today with the track Lunar, Caustic. That is the wrong one. There we go. Now, I'm actually mildly familiar with them. I checked out their latest EP from January and quite enjoyed that. So I'm looking forward to this. As mentioned, I think this is a live show. I don't think it was mentioned to me. I just didn't add it in the context. This is a live show. We're going to be watching the tail end of it. Apparently the audio is pretty good though for live. So let's dive in and see what Obscure Sphinx is bringing to the table today. Yeah, so a low energy start, bringing that same riff into this bigger sound here. The bass is massive. Pretty big wall of sound all around though. So much groove and power out of three notes. Ooh, okay. I was going to mention how these were the same notes with a different rhythmic pattern, but then we also have this new section here. So they like to do that. We had that from the intro into the first verse. I think we also had it from the verse into the chorus. That just kind of stopping everything and then punching in hard again. Another rhythmic variation on a very similar melodic idea. Wild gutturals too. Yeah, they get a lot of mileage out of an idea. Pick a few notes, make a riff out of it, and then, you know, change that riff up just ever so slightly from section to section. I've noticed on a lot of her vocal lines, though, they're rhythmically unusual. I find it very difficult to anticipate when she's going to change pitches, when she's going to change syllables. See, this is the same riff from earlier, too. Yep. It's the 3-note riff. Interesting to hear the guitars do a little bit of a rhythmic shift, coming on the end of one rather than on one, but the drums accent the one there. See, listen here. Yeah, you get the cymbal hit and then the guitar hit. So putting texture on top of the riff now. A little bit of rasp on that one note. I like the signal breaking up. Very cool harmonies. We have the guitar, we have the overtones of the guitar. And then we have her vocals. A lot of power, good air control. nice cathartic ending here. Not necessarily the sound I would expect for catharsis. The guitar tone breaking up is not typical for that, but even like some of the darker elements of the harmonies there. Some very interesting choices that on paper I don't think would necessarily lean towards that, but listening to it, that is exactly the emotion I get out of that moment. Catharsis. And I think a lot of it has to do with contrast too. I mean, the entire song is heavy, it is massive, it is weighty, it's punchy. And then here at the end we have this light guitar. It's still electric guitar. It's still got a little bit of a bite to it, but it's sort of all by itself with these I'm going to say mixed head and chest vocals, lots of power behind them, very ethereal, as was described by the person who requested this. And something about it just feels like a massive release after everything else that happened in the song. Yeah. Yeah, like a dark release of tension. Not, I wouldn't say it's a positive feeling, but it is relief in some quantity. And I dig that. All right. So, this is definitely some, I don't know, doom, post-metal, sludgy kind of stuff going on here. It's a lot of groove, a lot of texture, and not a lot of complexity. The bass and the guitar are frequently doing the exact same thing, really driving home this wall of sounds. Many of the riffs are on the simpler side. As I mentioned, that core riff, the one that keeps coming back in, I think it was the chorus, and we heard it coming in back after the bridge, and we heard a variation of it in the post-chorus. It's just 3 notes. And they get a lot of mileage out of that one. There are some riffs with a bit more movement to them, but at least as far as I kind of packed away in my mind, most of the riffage is a bit on the simpler side, designed to sound groovy and big and kind of have that rule of cool, just really awesome gritty sound going on for them. They're not designed to be technically impressive. They're designed to be weighty, to feel unwieldy, to put a pressure down on the listener. And I think for that intention, they absolutely nail it. Every bit of this sounds good to listen to, but also feels overbearing in so many different ways. And a lot of that comes down to, I think, the timbre of the guitar and the bass, the largeness of those tones. I mean, the bass is just, it is a meaty sound, massive, just huge tone in general. And the guitar has so much fuzz on it, and it is a big sound in and of itself too, that when they come together and they basically play the same ideas, it just creates this massive wall of sounds. Now, the drums, interestingly, they're just like this rigid backbone to everything. Very straightforward, very functional drumming. They are the glue that holds everything together. There's not a lot of fluff, not a lot of flourish, not a lot of spectacle. There's a couple of drum fills in here, but they feel very, again, functional. They're not there to pull any attention away from anything else. They keep the beat in the background, and they're just rock solid at doing that. What I find interesting, what I pointed out is, I guess this was towards the end of the song, that even when the guitar and bass decide to put a little bit of syncopation in, because this band absolutely loves to drop out sound, use a bit of space, and then punch in real large after that for effect, the drums very rarely go along with this. They're just so consistent, so locked into their rigid accent points, that when everyone else does some syncopation, they don't. They're still locked into that original beat, and I think that's pretty cool. It allows, well, it's kind of twofold. I think in one hand, it diminishes some of the impact that some of these sections could have, because the whole point is to render everything zero, to bring the volume as close to empty as possible by nobody playing anything, and then bringing the volume back up to that 10. It's the only way to really keep this level of energy and intensity and weight uh feasible for the entirety of a song, especially for someone like me. Like, if you just enjoy this, you can sit in this for a long time without becoming fatigued. But me, I'm not a huge fan of just consistent maxing everything out. I like contrast and dynamics. And so, just running a song at 10 for the entire time of the song, it kind of gets boring for me. And those little pockets are good ways to combat that, to ensure that your 10 continues to feel like a 10 rather than slipping into just the norm, becoming a 5. But you can't go any higher because you're as loud as you can be. So you kind of get stuck at feeling medium, even though you're constantly max. You need that contrast to resell it after the ears have become adjusted to it. You need to remind them, hey, this is loud stuff. So you drop everything out and punch it back in. When the drums fill in that space, though, you kind of lose some of that emptiness. But I do think it ends up working because those pockets are never filled with a snare hit, never toms or bass kicks, usually just a hi-hat, something to continue to lay that beat down without taking up a lot of space. So it still allows it to feel like we've brought the volume, the intensity, the weight way down, and then we can punch it right back up. And it happens consistently through this track. It's kind of wild how often they rely on that. And it's not something I remember picking up on when I checked out their EP, so I don't know if this is just an older style of writing of theirs. Maybe it's something specific to this song. Maybe it has artistic integrity. Maybe when we look at the lyrics, this kind of idea of auditory reset is present in the lyrics somehow. But it is all over the place in this track. You can't go more than a couple of minutes without hearing one of these. And it's a common transition, too. We came out of the intro into the verse for it. We shifted from the verse into the chorus with it. We shifted from the chorus into the bridge with it. Like, there's so many places where this is the transition of choice. But there are other ways that they introduce change and contrast. The entire bridge brings the energy down. In fact, the outro of the song is very reminiscent of the bridge, having a still electronic but not quite as distorted electric guitar, playing a light idea with some light drumming behind it and clean vocals on top of it. Kind of bringing the energy down, the volume down, trying to create an atmosphere that will allow them to punch back up and feel large again. I enjoy this end of the track here. So much of the song is just at this top layer with these momentary dips before jumping back up, that the bridge bringing the energy down into the outro, I thought that was fantastic. A really nice way of creating a bit of ebb and flow, dynamic movement there at the end of the song, and a way, at least to me, to artistically incorporate the theme of change, of variation into the music. Like I mentioned, so much of this song just runs at a consistent level that to have so much movement at the end immediately draws my attention to it. What does that mean? Why are we constantly dipping between lows and highs where we haven't previously? So, like I said, I quite enjoyed the ending. And of course, the final bit, as I mentioned, was just had such a strong element of catharsis to it that I wasn't expecting. Given the guitar going into that section, there's so many elements of that guitar that does not scream catharsis to me at all. And somehow, once the vocals came in and we started getting those harmonies, yeah, 100%. That's what that feels like. Relief, release, even. Now, the vocalist is definitely quite talented. A lot of this song has I think it's a fry scream on it, kind of a static sound in general. It's just one perceived pitch, one texture. It's kind of, it goes along with a lot of the music being very focused and singular in vision. But then we also get these really low gutturals. Was not, I mean, I was expecting it because I think it was Steven, was that who yes, Steven. They had mentioned, there's guttural bellows, strained cleans, ethereal choir-like cleans. So I was like, I'm already in the mood, in the mindset. Oh, we're gonna have a pretty talented vocalist here. But I don't think I was expecting those growls. That was guttural bellows. That is a good description for it. And then we get the very, I almost want to say they were falsetto. Very thin, ethereal, high pitched stuff in the bridge there. And so much so that there's so little air pressure going through that the voice begins to crack. And I think the final couple of words she actually whispers as if she's run out of the ability to speak at all. I thought that was a great point of putting narrative component into the performance of it. And then after that, we have these belted full cleans. And she puts a little bit of grit on one of the syllables. I thought that was really nice. It was like the peak of the melody. We rise up into it, and she just really sticks that landing before pulling it back in a little bit. And then, of course, the mixed head and chest at the very end of the song. Almost wailing. I don't even know if they were words. They just sounded like syllables to me. Um, yeah, quite a display of vocal techniques here, and quite impressive to see all of it come from one person. So, is there anything else I wanted to bring up before we dive into some lyrics? I don't think so. Let's hit some lyrics. There was one other thing, and it clicked as soon as I started looking at these lyrics, and that's the rhythmic phrasing of the vocals. The guitar, the bass, the drums, they all either are a rhythmic backbone of ideas or they're syncopation. They create a lot of groove between the two of them, and pretty much everything just makes sense. When you listen to it, you're like, yep, this is the kind of groove that makes sense to me. You listen to it, you immediately move your body. There's nothing disruptive or awkward or anything like that in the rhythmic elements of these instruments. Then we get to the vocals. And I noticed this during the growls, but it really became apparent to me during the first set of cleans that the rhythmic phrasing just doesn't make any sense to me. I can never tell when she's going to hold a note out, when she's going to shift to another syllable, when she's going to take a breath. There just doesn't seem to be any traditional movements of rhythmic phrases in here. And as I'm looking through these lyrics, I really can't find any core pulse through them either. There isn't a strong element of cadence, of poetic cadence to it. And I think it's really interesting that it's not just a part of her performance. It's not just how she chooses to move through these sentences, but it's actually a part of the poetry itself. It's free poetry. And instead of trying to force this into the musical rhythm, she just makes her own rhythmic pacing to it. And I find that to be very interesting. The lyrics almost feel like they're pushing against the groove of the song. Now, I don't think there's anything really in the lyrics here about pushing against a status quo or anything like that. There's also not much in here about the those momentary dips to silence. I mentioned I was going to try to see if I can't find any theming there, but yeah, it's as soon as I started looking at the lyrics, I was like, this is all over the place rhythmically. I can't even like imagine a melody that would fit any of this. It's, you just kind of have to go through it. And I think it's awesome that this rhythm makes sense to her. because I have no idea how I'd go about trying to put this poem into a musical framework. There's definitely parts that work a little bit better. The clean sections, I think they're the clean sections towards the end of the song, have a little bit more of a rhythmic cadence and pattern of pulse to them. But I mean, so much of this doesn't. Speaking of things that don't work, I don't get this. I there's some really cool metaphor going on here about growth of tissue within the body that serves no purpose and needs to be aggressively removed, or else it will kill you. It definitely feels like we're talking about something cancerous, but I mean, beyond that very surface level understanding of this metaphor, I don't know. We'll get into we'll get into it. See if it makes any more sense to you. Nerveless tissue, no impulse. Horridly, it pressures the skull, flowing out with thoughts through orbits, the shortest way to cut aggravating rumble to strangle pulsation, till it crushes all and invites the void, it invites the silence. Proud flesh is repeated over and over here. Tear it all out. Tear it out before it's too late. Proud flesh. Don't let it grow. Don't let it go. Never let it steam. Proud flesh. Scratch out with nails. Let it bleed away. Proud flesh. Throw it away and watch it die before it starts to live. So there is this element of ripping something out from within you that will save your life. Now, it doesn't necessarily, I think, have to be flesh of any sort. I think it could just be the inception of an idea, something that might change who you are on a fundamental philosophical level. The understanding here is that you need to do whatever you can to remove it from your body before it takes hold, before it chokes you out, before it strangles you and invites the void and invites the silence. Here's where things take a twist, though. Like I said, I get this metaphor, right? The end of the song, though, it says it feels so warm and I feel tranquility. May have all just been a bad dream, may have all been a hallucination, maybe I just forgot the bitter taste. No, don't you save me. I have no idea how this works into anything else of this song. There's also a short stanza that says, rampant thoughts intertwine, too many polluted, no turning back, all said and done, hide in the corner and punch empty space. To me, it feels like at least that stanza talks about being overcome by whatever this is that you're supposed to be removing from your body. But again, I don't know how that necessarily leads into the idea of feeling warm and tranquil and not wanting to be saved. So, how does any of this work with the music even? I mean, the idea of a cancerous part of your body that needs to be removed, the overbearing weight of the song, I think works really well delivering that. It speaks of the time-intensive process here. It's a massive weight, it's a stress put on you, something that needs to be taken care of right now, or worse things will happen. But the rising and falling action of the end of the song, the catharsis at the end, after saying, don't you save me, that's when things are feeling most cathartic. That's when there's a release. I don't know. I'm feeling a bit lost on some of this. So these are my thoughts. Obscure Sphinx's Lunar Caustic. What does that even mean? Lunar Caustic. A toxicity of the moon? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, these are my quite incomplete thoughts on Obscure Sphinx's Lunar Caustic. What are your thoughts, though? Is there anything I said that you'd like to expand upon? Maybe I was wrong and need correcting on some stuff. Maybe you have your own interpretation of things. Put all of that and any other thoughts you have down into the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.